You're listening to Let Me Tell You Why You're Wrong, all on Georgia Radio Network.
Welcome to episode 119 of the Let Me Tell You Why You're Wrong podcast. I'm Dave Roberts. With me, as always, is Little Miss Opinions, Little Miss I Think I'll Wear Yellow, Little Miss Fifth Estate, Little Miss Cop Hater, Little Miss Look at Me and All of My Corruption Stories, News Girl Barbie, Jessica Szilagyi.
You say it so well, like way better than how I heard it in my head when I received that message. That's funny.
I love this had to be from a chick.
It wasn't. It wasn't. It was from a guy, and it started because I put up a conversation point about the response to the George Floyd stuff, which we're going to talk about, but he got very upset in the comments section because I asked him for a link to something that he was talking about, the use of force policy, and I said, could you cite it for us or share with us? And he lost his mind, and someone else was arguing with him too, and he's like, listen here, News Girl Barbie, and told me that if I didn't like his opinion I could leave, and I was like, buddy, you're on my page. So then right before he blocked me, he sent me that message, and I literally busted out laughing. I've never been called News Girl Barbie, but I kind of feel like it's a compliment.
I thought it was a chick because of the I Think I'll Wear Yellow. I'm like what dude says that?
Well, and this is a guy that used to work at Georgetown University. Like, it's not he had like a decent job there, and he's an older guy and has a life and kids and a purpose, and he behaved like that. So that's what made it even more entertaining. And I don't share every hate message I get, but some of them are real zingers. And I mean, it doesn't hurt my feelings anymore, but I used to be much more sensitive about it, and laughing about it made me not internalize it. Now I just laugh at it because the comments people put in return are funnier than anything I could ever dream up, but it's freaking hilarious. I think I'll wear yellow. Yeah, I just might. Like, who cares?
And it's got pockets. How's your week?
It's been weird because of the short week. I feel like normally holiday weeks are kind of slow, and this week wasn't, but what about you?
The compressed week was rough on me too. I don't know how one day can throw so much off. That and the weather is not awesome, and a lot of what I do depends on weather. Mm-hmm. Although I might be able to get my trip back on and fly into Heathrow instead of going into Charles de Gaulle, and then take the train from London over to Paris.
Well, I saw that you've been having some privileged problems with Delta.
Sat on hold for 2 hours to get the flight refunded, because Delta won't let you get a refund on their website.
Which you would think in times like this they would make different accommodations,
Yeah, I don't want a credit.
Not for this isn't a $200 flight to St. Simons or something. This is a lot of money.
Yeah. I mean, it was not insignificant amount of money. And the girl I got on the phone was super, super, super nice. She's like, "Oh, it's in more than 90 minutes." Yeah, absolutely. And I had the refund the next day. It's just sitting on hold for 2 hours. Mm-hmm. It's like I couldn't even turn the baseball game on TV or anything to on mute while I listen to the hold music. It's just literally sitting in my chair, staring at the fox crawler across the screen, listening to your call is very important to us.
Oh my gosh.
So we have a little follow-up to 118. Mike Fordham, candidate for Bryan County Sheriff, is not very happy with you, Little Miss News Barbie.
Yes. To be clear, he's not the one that called me that. Thank God. I would take it offensively if he was. But last week, we spent a lot of time talking about Fordham because he's running for sheriff. He's had all kinds of claims and incident reports and military police investigations about aggravated sexual assault, verbal abuse, physical abuse, domestic violence, all these things, 911 calls. And I published the article on a Monday, which was May 18th, and didn't hear anything from him. And then the next, I wasn't expecting to hear from him, but usually a candidate will respond publicly within a day or so after they kind of get their thoughts together, and it was very quiet. And then he took to his Facebook page and just made a statement about something totally unrelated. I think about how he's a professor at a smaller school in Savannah, and the comments were so negative. I think there were like 40 or 50 comments in a matter of minutes, not one positive one. So he deleted his campaign Facebook page altogether. So after he did that, I was like, well, this is really going to be interesting, because how's he going to communicate with the public about this or anything else in this odd time? And so it was just really odd that he was so quiet, and that none of his supporters said anything either, other than his current wife did put out a statement saying she was devastated by everything that was being circulated. So fast forward to exactly a week, on last Monday, he issued a statement, and he called the reports and the allegations slanderous, which I think he meant libelous or defamatory, but not slanderous, because slander is spoken. And then he said that the documents were inappropriately released, and in his one-page statement, he vowed to discipline employees who release documents as if they're their own, and to use his discretion and review every open records request personally if he is elected sheriff. So I loved it. He said basically that the allegations were false, but that they should have never been released, and if he becomes sheriff, he'll make sure that anybody who releases documents is punished. What? That's the worst answer. Silence was better. Do you agree?
And then he laughed about it.
Well, I didn't know if you wanted to comment on that before I went into the worst part about it, but I thought that his response was just... And he also challenged, of course, as always, All on Georgia, saying, consider the source, and he went after me for not giving him an opportunity to comment on the story, but I included his statements that he made to the Army, to Post, to... I included 911 calls that had his voice on it. I'm not a believer that if you have a phone call of audio of the woman and the man in a domestic dispute and they're both on the call, there's nothing to say.
And what would he have said?
Right. He would have said no comment. That is what they say. So, and one other thing. So he said that all of the allegations that came against him happened when he filed for divorce against his then wife. Well, that's not true, because they were deployed together, essentially, without getting into all of it. They were overseas together, and the first claims and reports of this were by a third party, and then there were years of sworn statements from 2012 all the way through 2013 and into 14, and he didn't file for divorce until January of 2014. That's on the clerk of court's website. It's on their records. It was in the article. And so he's still lying. And he called my article, which was 3,000 words. I talked to you about it. I was really having a hard time narrowing it down because there was so much. But he called it selective reporting. going to be like, buddy, if that's selective, then God help us with what else you've got out there. If there's something we don't know. But I say all that to say, my friend who lives in Bryan County has a podcast called Truth, Integrity, and Justice, where she does video podcasts on Facebook Live with different people. And she had him on her podcast as scheduled on May 27th. So 9 days after the article. And she was extremely fair. She went through all the questions that she went through with the other candidates, and then she asked him questions from constituents, which included all of this. And like I said, this is a video thing, and there were like 150 of us watching. And she starts asking him about the domestic violence claims and the sexual assault allegations and findings, by the way. And he laughed. And he didn't just laugh for like briefly, like nervously. He laughed for several minutes. Open mouth, big teeth smiles and laughs. And I was mortified. I've never seen somebody be so flippant and dismissive, not just about their own claims, about something that he's supposedly upset about that is defamatory and slanderous and all this crap. I don't think that the subject matters are funny. And so anyway, I wrote an article about what he said and did in that podcast as well. And the feature photos I used were 4 screen caps at different timestamps of him laughing, which was the entire discussion through the domestic violence stuff. And she pressed him a number of times, but all he said was that he denies the allegations and that it would be inappropriate and unprofessional for him to comment on it because he's moved forward.
Well, good for him.
And this is his statement. Yeah. I love this. He said, "I'm simply not going to relitigate what has been relitigated. Decisions made by other commanders in the U.S. Army out of context, and there are other things that the public may or may not have, and under the Georgia Open Records Act may or may not should have had. But that's neither here nor there. I'm a Christian, and I'm a member of Richmond Hill United Methodist Church. It would be inappropriate and unprofessional for me to comment." No, it wouldn't be, because we want to know your response to this. And if your response is that it shouldn't have come out, that's disgusting. And the humdinger of all of this is that towards the end of the interview, this sorry SOB had the gall to, she asked him about his certification being suspended and the fact that he's on probation while running for sheriff, and if he wins and is elected and sworn in, he will still be on probation with the Peace Officers Standards and Training Council. And she's pressing him on this, and he said, those guys up there that they work there day to day, they're friends of mine. And he's laughing again. And he said, Mike Ayers, the director of Georgia Post, he's a former GBI agent, which Mike Fordham worked for the GBI. And he's like, I'm not a criminal. I have nothing bad to say about Post because they're my friends. And so he literally is boasting about the fact that when his certification was reinstated, which arguably it never should have been, it happened because his former coworker and friend is the executive director of the Post Council, and that's funny to him.
It's arrogance.
It's disgusting, and it absolutely is arrogance. It's terrifying that he could become the most powerful law enforcement officer in the county, and have complete autonomy under the Georgia Constitution of his authority, and he has a belief system like this, that these types of things are funny.
I can't even imagine how terrifying it would be to be in the position of his wife.
Oh, I loved in his statement about her, he said, Melissa wants me to let you know, this is in his written statement, Melissa, his wife, wants me to let you know that we have a good marriage. Yeah, right.
And
it is infuriating, and I totally lost my cool in the comments I was telling you before the show. during the Facebook Live. I mean, because people were watching, and I was refuting what he was saying with the dates and the documents, and trying to. I didn't want them to fall for it, and they didn't seem to, but I didn't want them to fall for his lies, because he's sitting there being all relaxed and coy and funny and acting like he was the one that was wronged. And after an hour, I lost my cool about him, because it's a disservice to the badge. It completely discredits the entire post council, which certifies every law enforcement officer in our state, and it compromises the integrity of everything. And it's funny to him.
It would give permission to everybody in that department to act like he did. I mean,
and what happens when he's sheriff and they do?
Right.
Because the thing is the agencies around Bryan County, and even the municipal agencies, have more integrity. So they don't want to work with them. They don't want to respond. They don't want to do regional task forces. And whatever your opinion is on that is really irrelevant, other than, at least when you have that type of thing, the people of the county have resources and access to quality officers and deputies. When you have a person leading it, they don't want to be associated with it, so they distance themselves. And then the people have nothing. That's what's at risk here, other than a reign of terror. But I mean, that's what's really at risk here, is the entire system and all the resources the people pay for. It's God. I've got videos on the Bryan County Jail. I just never have done anything with them, because people are not open to dialogue on how inmates should be treated. So it's a tough discussion to have. But God help someone who has to go in the Bryan County Jail if he has such disregard for anyone or anything.
Well, and he's supposed to, the one person you're supposed to have regard for. I mean, it's that thing, that stuff's a character flaw that goes down to your core. Mm-hmm. The fact that it's sociopathic to sit there and laugh about it. No, that was just part of the divorce. No, beating your wife and threatening to kill her dog is not part of a divorce.
No. And it happened 2 years before you filed for divorce.
And I don't know about those 2 years, if they were on opposite deployments, if she was around, if she was a stranger, whatever it was. But look, it's for him to laugh it off. That's not the way an innocent person acts. An innocent person doesn't say, "Well, these facts shouldn't have come out." An innocent person says, "That is absolutely factually incorrect. I would never raise my hand to a woman," and then you go from there and say, "Look, it was a horrible, ugly thing that was brought into the divorce, but I don't think she got anything out of the divorce. There's no reason for her to do that." And like you said, it was a third party that brought it up.
Right.
It was somebody who was familiar with the signs of spousal abuse. That's like, well, no, we need to get you some help.
Yeah, and she didn't just say that. She said she went to the U.S. Embassy in Georgia, the country of Georgia, and said there is a need for an immediate intervention. Not, hey, could you guys take a look into this? Something doesn't feel right in my gut.
Yeah, it was not the least bit ambiguous.
No.
Well, not to brush him aside, but we did talk a good bit about Mike Fordham last week, and it is interesting to me how quickly he got upset with you, which is amusing to me.
I hit dog collars.
So the biggest news of the week is what happened in Minneapolis on Memorial Day, the George Floyd story.
Awful.
Very, very, very hard to watch.
When did you hear about it?
I don't even know. It came up on a website with the video and all that. So I don't even know when it came up, because as things get warmer, I get more and more disconnected from national news.
Yeah. I do agree with that. And if it weren't for social media, I probably would be even more disconnected. But because of the flow of information and everything, I mean, I do see more than normally. But I saw the headlines and immediately I was like, well, I don't want to read any of this. I want to see the video for myself. So I went and found the video before I read any news article.
It's a rough video to watch. And you and I were talking before the show also. It's bad because you know the ending. Mm-hmm. And you see whatever is 9 minutes of that could be prevented. And I don't know anybody who's defending those officers. Outside of his lawyer, of course.
No, even the people who I don't know how to characterize their beliefs because they're different than mine, and so I don't want to misstate, but there's some people who seem to want like the autopsy and some other stuff, and before they directly say that the man or George Floyd died because of the neck on, or the knee on the neck, before they want to know for certain that that was absolutely the cause of death. They're not saying that what happened wasn't wrong, and they're not saying that the officer shouldn't be held accountable. I think they're just the type of people who want more information always before they have an opinion. And I don't even think they would be opposed to an arrest right now. They just want all the information. And I think that's okay. I can still respect that. But I'm with you. I haven't seen anyone who's like, well, it wasn't that bad. It's one of the worst things I've ever seen.
Yeah, I haven't seen any of my police friends saying, "Oh no, that's absolutely the proper way to control a suspect is to kneel on his neck while he's handcuffed." And the shop owner called the police because he believed that this guy was passing a phony 20. And that's not even in the purview of the city police. That's a matter for the Secret Service. And 95% of the people who pass phony bills have no idea they're phony. They got it from somebody else. They got it, changed from a grocery store. There are counterfeits that float around with our money all the time. But even that, it doesn't matter what he did. You, at the point where you have him under control, you you hop off his damn neck.
Right, and this was a unique video in the sense that it wasn't 1 minute, it wasn't 30 seconds, it wasn't just watching an officer fire his gun or slug someone across the jaw or anything like that. It was 9 minutes. There were multiple angles, and it doesn't matter what happened before. It doesn't matter how much the guy resisted or if he fought, because in the video one of the officers says, well, he fought us for blah 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 minutes before, and that's been refuted. But even if that was true, even if he fought for 30 minutes or all kinds of, it doesn't matter, because everyone in law enforcement and not in law enforcement can see that the guy was not resisting, that he was completely under control, that the officer was not threatened in any way, and he still stayed on his neck.
And here's the thing, is emotions run high, but not for 9 minutes. And the other thing is, once you have control of a suspect, that's it. There's the bell's rung, the round is over. That's why you see things like you may have to chase somebody down, tackle them, slam them to the ground. But once you put cuffs on them, you put your hand on the back of their head to get them in the car so they don't bang their head, because they're in your custody. Their safety is your responsibility.
Right. And we talked about this before the show too. I mean, I've written a lot about law enforcement, and I'm certainly no expert and haven't been through training or anything like that, but I've seen a lot of videos where force is used, and they handcuff the guy or girl in some of the videos and stand him up, and immediately the body language of the officer changes and the tone of the voice of the officer changes. And I was telling you about one of them where that officer got the guy up and was like, all right, buddy, like, let's get in the car. And he put his hat back on him and told him watch his head. And I mean, I understand that that's just being a decent human, but that's the entire point, is that they act like decent humans. And in this video, there clearly was no decency or morality at all. And I thought it was, so in Statesboro, our chief actually put out a public statement, which surprised me a little bit, only because it went out on the official page and for Statesboro Police Department and everything. But he addressed the attitude of the officers and said that the attitude was callous and indifferent. And I thought that was a really good word choice, because aside from everything else, I think that's what is what actually enraged everyone. I mean, of course, everyone's upset that George Floyd died, but looking at them being so relaxed and indifferent,
absolutely cavalier about it. Hand in the pocket.
Yeah, and it's almost hard you can't even comprehend it. Like, you're watching all these people yell, saying, "Don't do that, please help him," and you're watching the guy yell, and they're just standing there or sitting there, and it's you can't relate to that mentality. And so the chief's statements about the attitude is what it really resonated with me, and I was like, wow, that's a really great way to start the conversation, that their attitude is the number one problem here. There are a lot of problems and they should all be addressed, and some of them are criminal, but the attitude is disgusting.
Well, and I think we really need to look at system-wide the use of the prone position once somebody is handcuffed. There was a case a few years ago, and the body cam footage came out, and it was a guy who was having a psychotic episode. He had schizophrenia, had some other things going on. So they subdue him, and he called 911 himself. They subdue him. He was already handcuffed by the time the police got there. They zip tie his legs together, and then they kneel on top of him, and they're cracking jokes. And it didn't get serious until like the paramedics were like, he's not breathing, and they're like, uh-oh, did we just kill him? So the use of that position. I mean, I understand you've got to get cuffs on somebody, but to sit there and kneel on somebody's neck or kneel on somebody's chest while you're pinned to the ground, I mean, it'll kill you.
Well, and I think that there's been a lot of course, everyone on the internet is an expert now on all of this, but there's been some conversation about how it needs to be taken out of use of force policies and this, that, and the other. And I disagree with that, only from the perspective of it's put in the policies so that if in a fight or in a scuffle, an officer does do that, to get them under control, for 5 or 10 or 20 seconds, they're not held, I guess, not unaccountable, but I don't know what the word would be, but so that they're not punished for doing that in a brief period, or if it is a result of a fight. It's not in the use of force policy so that you can sit there for 9 minutes. It's
nothing that an officer does nothing that an officer does should be punitive. I mean, you don't kneel on his neck because he put up a fight. Your actions are not to be punitive. That's up to a judge and jury. Your job is to keep everyone safe and bring in somebody who's needing to be arrested. It's not their job to beat the snot out of somebody because they didn't like, they don't like them, or they think they're scumbags. That's not their place. Get control of the suspect and secure the scene, and then hand him over to the court system.
Right. But yeah, and the thing is that's the problem with use of force policies, or like the strict interpretation of them. When we start looking at them after situations like this, Like, I'm not sure that, well, first of all, it's not like this is written in a line item. I looked at the policy. It's not like it's in a line item that says you can do this. It doesn't. It just talks about the means to get somebody under control. But whether this was in the policy or was permissible or not makes no difference, because if it was used excessively and for too long. And if it wasn't, it was used excessively and for too long. Like, I'm not brushing it off on the guy just saying, well, he was a bad person and so it would have whatever, but he's a terrible human.
Right. Your job is not to, it really was. I mean, you watch it, you just kind of see the guy's like, F this guy. And just keeps kneeling on him. I can't breathe. It just keeps kneeling on him. And of course, we're going to hear underlying medical conditions, and we'll find out all about all of that. The only question I would have for the ME is, would he be alive today if they simply set him in the car?
Well, yeah, was a medical condition or a medical episode exacerbated by the stress or the elevated blood pressure or heart rate or the lack of, there's so many things. But it doesn't, none of it matters to me. Like, someone was like, well, he got fired and he didn't have his due process for the procedural, whatever, being placed on administrative leave and having the hearing and all that. What is there to administratively evaluate? That is a violation of a policy. Hands down.
If you can't take somebody off the street for murder, I don't know what
But even if that's not I don't know, I don't understand what the autopsy is really going to change, because what are they going to say? Well, he died. 50% of the reason he died was because of what the officer did, and the other 50% is because of whatever it doesn't matter. But he should have absolutely lost his job, whether the guy died or not. And I don't mean to say the guy flippantly and not use his name, because I know that offends some people. I don't mean it like that. But it doesn't matter. He violated policy in a way that should not be acceptable in any agency. He needed to go. There's no defending that.
No, you're right. Even if the guy lives, that's you can't use force. I said I can't use force as a punitive measure. That's not the role of the police department. They don't carry a gun to punish. They carry a gun to protect. They don't carry an asp so that you can once you're handcuffed, they beat the snot out of you. That's not their job. Their job is they carry an asp to defend themselves. So yeah, like I said, I don't know anybody in law enforcement, out of law enforcement. I don't know anybody who's defending any of the actions, and we don't know the names of the other three guys. They were canned, but none of them, not a single one of them, went and grabbed the officer by the shoulder and said, "Hey, man, that's enough. Let's put him in the car."
Yeah, nothing. Didn't even say, "Hey, do you want to get him up?" Nothing. Like, not even an inquiry. But you bring up that's a great transition to what you were just saying a moment ago about how you don't know anyone in law enforcement or generally that doesn't think what happened is wrong. The entire country was behind immediate and swift action and even an arrest. And then the riot started.
Because the only way you can make up for an injustice is to loot Target. Yeah. So last week we get several nights of unrest, of rioting, looting. Burning cars, burning affordable housing that's going up. They attack a police station, the 3rd Police Precinct building. And then apparently in an interview on Thursday night, they said, we're coming to the suburbs next.
Why?
I said, I don't know if you found somebody who was, standing up for the officer. I live in the suburbs. I'm the first one to say, yeah, no, that's you can't, just like we said, you can't do that. You can't kneel on somebody's neck for 9 minutes. And like, by all means, yeah, come to the suburbs and burn my house down because that'll help you.
Why? Right. Why? Like, what, and then there's this argument that anyone who's ticked off about the protesters, oh, well, why are you more upset about the protests? Or they're not protests, they're riots. I'm not upset about protests. If you want to march in the street, if you want to crash their email servers because you've flooded them, if you want to keep the phone lines busy, if you want to stand outside, I will support your right to do that every single day as long as you want to do it. But I don't support you damaging someone else's property, and it doesn't mean that I don't think what happened to George Floyd is wrong. I'm just disgusted that you want to infringe on someone else's individual liberty in the name of George Floyd's no longer having any individual liberty. Like, that doesn't even make any sense.
No, look, there's nobody standing up saying George Floyd deserved to die. So I mean, I don't understand I don't understand the mentality behind it anyway. And I understand.
The argument is that they want an arrest now and that he shouldn't be home. The officer shouldn't be home with his family like the rest of us. That's the argument. I agree. Again, I mean, I really do, but...
Well, there's a comedy of errors that goes along with the arrest. The FBI shouldn't even be involved. That should be a real simple in-state thing to handle. One, it's illegal to kill people in Minnesota. Why in the hell the mayor was calling for the FBI, I have no idea.
Well, and they could have handled it differently too, but the DA that we're dealing with this with the Arbery case, the DA that routinely works with the police department should not be the DA that's handling it. And that's the DA that's speaking out, which is interesting to me, because just because the FBI and ultimately the U.S. Attorney's Office is involved doesn't mean that the DA won't be involved in some capacity. And so I just find that really odd that there hasn't been some sort of distancing or appointment of another district attorney.
And here's the thing. The special prosecutor, as we heard, happens all the time. It doesn't mean you don't make an arrest. You make an arrest, maybe, and you may bring in a judge and prosecutor from a neighboring county, from somewhere else. Apparently, it happens with regularity. DAs cross county lines because of familiarity. If you play golf with a DA on Thursday, his office probably shouldn't be prosecuting you on Friday. But it doesn't mean you don't make an arrest.
Sure.
And I understand the argument that he's no longer on the street. Take your time, get all the facts. And I understand that argument, but nobody else would get that courtesy. If there's a video of me killing a guy, I'm going to jail. Ultimately, it'll be up to a jury whether or not I go to prison, but they're gonna arrest my ass. So the closeness of the DA case, that's.
Oh, I'm not saying it's I'm not saying that should be an excuse because it shouldn't. But there should have been a lot of other things that happened first before the mayor just called in the FBI, I guess is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, and the thing is, once you get the feds on anything, everything slows down. The feds don't move fast.
Right.
They move assuredly, but not quickly. So this whole idea that the FBI is going to swoop in there and lock him up, it's jurisdictionally, I don't even know where you go with that. He didn't cross state lines. It's a Minnesota issue. Minnesota needs to prosecute this guy, and he needs to go to a state prison.
Well, he won't last long there.
you know what? And I know. I mean, look, the dude could do us all a favor and check out anytime he wants to, but he's going to prison. I mean, it's just a matter of time. And I don't like that, how this mirrors the case in Brunswick, that we need a video to get upset about it.
Right. I agree with that.
Like it's not a big deal until we see the life being squeezed out of somebody. It's not a big deal until we see a guy trying to get away from two inbreds in a pickup truck. It's not a big deal until we see it. And these officers should assume that every day they're being videotaped from every angle.
Well, they had body cameras on too that were supposedly activated according to the official statement by the Minneapolis PD. So.
Do they have the ability to shut them off?
They do.
Yeah.
What are you getting at?
I'm just curious if they had the ability to shut it off. I mean, obviously you need privacy if you're gonna go to the restroom or something like that. But certainly wouldn't want them to shut that off and then kneel on somebody's neck.
No, but they seemed completely unfazed by because the video, the angle that went viral, was not the only video. Because if you look in his video, you can see that there's like 4 other people to his right and 1 to his left that were also videoing. And the officer, I think his name was Tao, that was in the front, the one that was standing, he didn't seem to care at all that everyone was videoing everything.
And I understand there's a callous nature to I Can't Breathe because they hear it every day.
Sure, if it's for 2 seconds.
Right. Because it's uncomfortable. Being pinned to the ground is uncomfortable. And I heard someone questioning the people that were around videotaping and didn't stop it. We'd be
they could get shot?
Yeah, we'd be having a totally different conversation if everybody in the street grabbed a brick and started pelting the officers with it, telling them to get off the dude's neck.
So it's interesting that you bring that up because one of my friends in law enforcement had posted about it and obviously condemning it, and one of his friends commented and said, what would you suggest that an onlooker do in a situation like that? What could we do to stop that? Because he said, if I charge a cop or try to take him out at the knees or knock him off the guy, I'm going to get, like he said, hopefully I'd only get tased, but I could get shot. And of course, someone was like, well, would you be willing to risk your life for someone else? Okay, well, it really shouldn't come to that. So let's not pretend like that you have to take the noble approach. His question was genuine. What should onlookers do? And the officer that posted it responded and was like, I don't know. Because it does put those people, I can't imagine the situation, the rock and a hard place of standing there wanting to make sure that you get it on, and you're yelling for them to stop, knowing you can't escalate any higher because you're putting yourself and everyone else standing there in danger.
Right. And I don't know what the right answer is. I mean, obviously, fix bayonets. But remember, as it's happening, these onlookers don't know that a death is about to happen. They don't know.
Well, I think the firefighter knew, because she said, you can't do that. You can't breathe. Take his pulse. No,
I'm talking about the onlookers.
Well,
I mean,
she was
at the point where you're going to go charge a cop, or you're going to draw a weapon, you're going to pelt him with rocks. I mean, you don't. At a certain point, you think you're documenting police brutality. You don't realize that you're documenting a murder.
True.
And I don't know what the appropriate response is. It's easy to sit here Monday morning quarterback and say, well, if I was there, I'd have picked up a brick and thrown it at him. Mm-hmm. If I was there, I'd have gone over and pulled him off of him. If I was there, no, you don't know.
Well, and but I think it's a good conversation to have because it reminds people that those people standing there were helpless. Like, they really were doing everything they thought they could, or probably could as well. But what do you... It's like, even if they did know, that'd be like watching a train go down the tracks plowing towards a car stuck on the... You know what's going to happen. Like, what do? You can't stop it. What do you do?
Right.
I don't know.
I know, and in earnest, thing to say is we have to make sure it doesn't happen again. Mm-hmm. And I didn't realize that there were such bad race relations in Minneapolis. I have no business in Minnesota.
No family, nothing. I don't.
Yeah, I mean, other than I know they have lakes and Prince lived there. And I know there are supposed to be a lot of Norwegians out there, but I didn't realize that it was such a hotbed. Trump has promised to bring the National Guard if local authorities are incapable of handling the violence. The National Guard thing sounds like a good idea because you have a bunch of people who are heavily armed, who can, handle an uprising. It's a horrible idea because you put those guardsmen in a horrible position.
Yeah.
I mean, the army exists to kill people and break things. Not to handle rioters and looters. There's a reason that your equipment that you're issued, in the army, are things like automatic weapons, not just a sidearm, bayonet, because the army exists for combat. And I understand that the militia has been used. I mean, ever since Adams was president, they used an army, a militia, to put down the Whiskey Rebellion without a shot being fired. And I understand we can use it to put down active rebellion, but man, that puts some 18-year-old kid in a horrible position to figure out if he's supposed to rotate his selector switch and light somebody up for throwing bricks at him. Mm-hmm. That's not what we do in this country. We don't get the army out with water cannons and stuff. That's not what we do here. So I don't know. It is a tough conversation for two white people to have. Because no, I don't understand the emotions that go along with it. I can only speak to the principle of kneeling on any person's neck like that.
Right.
But it is easy for me to say it's childish to go and set fire to your neighborhood and steal TVs from Target.
And tell me what you want the solution to be. I understand you want this. I understand you don't want people to die at the hands of police. I understand that, but what exactly? Like, how do you want to make that happen? If you can't articulate that to me, and you're protesting and rioting.
Yeah, I mean, you absolutely have a right to petition your government. I don't know what to ask for. I don't know, other than we want an arrest. Well, is that going to satisfy everybody?
And just like I said with the Arbery case, I want arrests and I want the process because it's the right time, it's the right process, and it's the right charges, and everything else, it's the right thing to do. And it's done correctly, not because of political pressure. I don't want a system that operates on viral videos and angry people. I want a system that operates on fact and accuracy and getting it right.
Right. Because above all, the process, if we devalue the process, it has no value. So, yes, an arrest should have been made by now. I I'm a layman, but I'm pretty sure I could prosecute based on that video. Man, it's not a hard argument to make. You know, it's a giant mess, and it's been bungled by the mayor. I mean, at first I guess he asked for the FBI. I guess the governor's already activating the National Guard. So Trump sends out a tweet calling the mayor weak.
And the mayor retorted and said, it's weak to blame others. But Trump went a little further than calling the mayor weak. Although it was two tweets. The first one made me giggle because he was basically, it sounded like a dad, like, Jacob, which is the mayor's name, get it under control or we're going to get it under control for you. The tone of it made me laugh. The second tweet, I was like, oh. Do you want to talk about that? Yeah,
that's the tweet goes, "These thugs are dishonoring the memory of George Floyd, and I won't let that happen. Just spoke to Governor Tim Walz and told him that the military is with him all the way. Any difficulty, and we will assume control. But when the looting starts, the shooting starts. Thank you." This is what, 1:30 in the morning?
A little bit early. This tweet says that it was at 10. I misspoke. So I guess it was fairly early, but
unforced errors here. One, nobody should be happy with the phrase "any difficulty and we'll assume control." Like, that's a problem. That the mentality base is there. Like, well, if we will assume control, that's a problem. And then when when the looting starts, the shooting starts. It's one thing if I'm a store owner and I'm guarding my store and I say that. It's another thing for the damn president to say stupid stuff like that.
Right. But Twitter just didn't think it was stupid. They went a little further than that.
They did. They flagged him.
But in their defense, they didn't take it down entirely because they felt like people needed to know what he said that was against their standards.
Right.
Which is interesting.
I also think Twitter is treading lightly with POTUS right now. We got the news last week that they are crafting something to handle censorship on social media, and I don't know what it's going to look like. And we've talked about it on the show before. I mean, I don't know at what government can do because those are private platforms.
Well, we know what they can do. It's just what they should do, and they shouldn't do anything. And I saw a tweet. I don't know who it was by, but it said, hey, Republicans, don't be surprised when the next Democrat president shuts down Fox News. Signed, your libertarian friends.
Right. And, everybody's fine when it's their team in charge. Executive orders were a problem when Obama was in office. But then Trump comes to office like, oh, they're not so bad.
Right.
And then when it swings back the other way, whether it's this year or if it's in 4 years, everybody be up in arms when that person starts issuing executive orders. We gave the damn executive branch too much power, and now it's only a problem when the other guy's in charge. That was never supposed to be the most powerful office in the world.
Right.
That branch exists to enforce the laws Congress passes, but Congress doesn't do that anymore. They'd rather just hand the executive branch huge amounts of power so they can go and have their little squabbles. So, Jessica, as as we're running long, do you have any thoughts?
Yes, I just want to briefly mention our friend Jackie Johnson, the Brunswick District Attorney, who was involved in the Arbery case and all kinds of scandals and is under investigation by the Department of Justice and the GBI for her handling of the Arbery case. She's now going after, she's hired legal counsel to go after media outlets, and the first one she went after is the Baxley Informer. And she's sending cease and desist letters to them, telling them that they have harmed her reputation because of the libel, L-I-A-B-L-E, and her reputation as district attorney is taking a hit, and she has the right to enjoy a good reputation free of whatever you want to call what people are doing, sharing facts and everything. And so they sent a cease and desist to this. And the reason that they sent it to the Baxley Informer is because it's a fairly new online blog. It's news and opinion, and it's central to the area. But they've been posting they obviously have an inside source, and they've been posting a whole lot of stuff about it. And so I just want everyone to know that Jackie Johnson is a fool. And the entertaining part about this is that she sent a cease and desist letter to the county commissioners as well, because they have spoken out against her. And the attorney for the county commissioners refuted everything and said, we've made all of our statements based on press releases that your office has put out. And they closed their letter with the most epic response. The attorney said basically that he knows it's unsolicited, but he wanted to offer a point of advice and basically encourage her not to seek civil litigation while she's under investigation by the Department of Justice and the GBI, because depositions and mediation would not be stalled just because everything else has a criminal investigation pending. And cheers. So
she's an idiot.
She really is.
I mean, she writes like an idiot. I mean, reading her response to the Arbery case and all that, that's when I read, is like, it's really, this is from a district attorney. I mean, it would get a C in high school English class. I mean, it was just bad, and it was pestilent. It was just awful. So anyway, now that I've said that Jackie Johnson's an idiot, these have been our opinions, and not necessarily those of All on Georgia, and certainly not those of anyone not appearing on the show and speaking for him or herself. For Jessica Szilagyi, for Eric Cumby, our editor, I'm Dave Roberts. Have a great week.